Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Welcome in. Here's what we're going to talk about today. During a White House news conference yesterday, when asked how far he will go on Greenland, the president had a short, simple answer. You'll find out. President Trump also spoke out about the U.S. Supreme Court cases over trans athletes in women's sports, calling out the justice who he believed appeared to be fighting to keep men playing in women's sports. We have the latest on that, too. And according to social media posts, a number of restaurants, bars, and coffee shops in the Twin Cities are planning to take part in an economic blackout, this in response to President Trump's immigration enforcement policies. Now, how much sense does this make that you close your business, lose revenue to protest the president? California Governor Gavin Newsom showed his true colors in Davos, complaining that world leaders are too nice and rolling over rather than standing up to Donald Trump. This is the same guy who was waiting at the foot of the stairs on the tarmac, begging the president for federal money when the president was threatening to withdraw federal funds from California. Remember that? What a clown.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
President Trump fueled fresh speculation yesterday when asked at the White House news conference how far he would go to get Greenland.
How far are you willing to go to acquire Greenland?
You'll find out.
Well, that was short and sweet, wasn't it? And you could see the look on the faces of some of the reporters who were sort of on the side of the room there. Now, the president dismissed concerns that Greenlanders do not want to join the U.S. and that a move to seize the island would undermine the NATO alliance. And the president went on to explain what he thinks will happen when asked if he was willing to risk the breakup of NATO.
A consequence of your determination to take control of Greenland is the ultimate breakup of the NATO alliance. Is that a price you're willing to pay?
You mean the breakup of it's very interesting question. So I think something's going to happen that's going to be very good for everybody. I think that we will work something out where NATO is going to be very happy and where we're going to be very happy. But we need it for security purposes. We need it for national security and even world security. It's very important. How about it?
And look, Donald Trump, they're asking the wrong person here because Donald Trump is going to put America first every time. Now, this has all come about because in recent weeks, the president has zeroed in on Greenland once again. It's the world's largest island, a strategic outpost in the Arctic, as you probably know if you've looked at it on the globe. It's remote, semi-autonomous Danish territory. It is, it is a NATO ally-owned property. It hosts key U.S. military bases, occupies a strategic position in an Arctic region that, let's just face it, is growing more competitive as the melting ice opens new shipping lanes and access to critical resources. The president has repeatedly framed Greenland as a national security necessity, making the argument that Russia and China would gain ground in the region if the U.S. does not acquire it, because they will. The latest revelation comes as the president heads to Davos, Switzerland, where global leaders have flocked to attend the World Economic Forum. And boy, what a clown show that is at times too. And the issue of Greenland, it will dominate. It's already dominated. You have some of the world leaders just posturing, waiting for Trump's arrival. The threat of additional tariffs is one of the tools that the president is using. European leaders suggested over the weekend that they would be willing to hit back with retaliatory measures worth up to $107 billion. Now, the president first raised the idea of acquiring Greenland during his first term, and he drew the same swift pushback from Denmark and other European leaders at the time. This resistance he now appears willing to confront again and maybe just hang in there. And whether the Trump administration strikes a deal to take over Greenland, we don't know. That's unclear. But again, it's a crucial piece of property. And is acquiring Greenland just that far out of the question? Think about this for a minute. And it took me a minute to kind of go over this and think about our history too. The U.S. didn't just magically appear as a continental superpower. We have expanded strategically, deliberately over the years. Let's go through some of those, just as a refresher. The Louisiana Purchase, 1803. We bought it from France for $15 million. It doubled the size of our country overnight. That's about 3 cents an acre. Florida, 1819. Acquired from Spain, $5 million, mostly by assuming Spanish debts. Again, secured the southern border and trade routes. Of course, we annexed Texas. The Mexicans cessioned Southwest in 1848 from Mexico after the Mexican-American War, $15 million. California, Arizona, New Mexico, Nevada, Utah, parts of Colorado. You see where I'm headed with this? That allowed us to expand westward. Then, of course, more recently, 1867, Alaska. We purchased it from Russia, $7.2 million. At the time, we were mocked. But hey, look at what Alaska offers us. Oil, gas, military dominance. Part of the Arctic region that we can control on that part of the continent. Hawaii, 1898. We annexed the Republic of Hawaii. That is a strategic naval position now. Became a state in 1959. Puerto Rico and Guam, purchased from Spain for $20 million. Permanent U.S. territories, military footholds. Every one of these moves was controversial at the time. Whoever the president, whoever the leadership was criticized. Critics said it was a reckless, expensive, or unnecessary. Every single one turned out to be strategically vital for our nation. Greenland isn't about a conquest or taking over additional property. It's about national security. It's about the vast resources there. If we don't get it, if we don't come up with some deal, China or Russia will. Greenland sits in the Arctic. It's the fastest changing strategic region on the place of the planet. And again, Russia, China, they're already circling. They're militarizing shipping routes. There's you got to consider the rare earth minerals there. And again, the U.S. already has a military presence there. If Greenland is critical enough to defend, which basically that's what we're doing and what we have been for many years now, Greenland would not be safe without the U.S. presence there. So if it's critical enough for us to defend, don't you think it's critical enough for us to acquire and to have total control? What we're hearing about Greenland is very similar to the ridicule faced by leaders who supported buying Alaska, for example. The elites laughed at the time. And wouldn't you say that today Alaska is indispensable? It's a very important part of our nation. Let's just face it. America became the world's most powerful nation because it thought long term. Not because it played small or worried about headlines or what the rest of the world thought about us. It's about protecting American interest in a very dangerous world. while our adversaries are thinking 5, 10, 50 years ahead, we got to think long term. And Donald Trump knows this. Donald Trump thinks long term. And you got to admit he's probably thinking about his legacy as well, to be the president who acquired Greenland for our nation. Because 50 years from now, 100 years from now, with Greenland as part of the United States, people will look back and think, why did it take so long? And let's be frank, history rewards countries that plan like this, not countries that apologize. So the question is, why would America want Greenland? The better question is, why wouldn't America want Greenland? Why has it taken us this long? And it takes someone like Donald Trump to be so bold to step up and to make this happen. President Trump was asked about the Supreme Court cases involving transgender athletes in women's sports. And as typical of the president when it comes to this issue, he didn't mince words. He said he was stunned by what he heard during oral arguments, stunned that some justices appeared to be, in his words, fighting hard to keep biological men competing in women's sports. This is a way, I think, that the president probably is letting the justices know. Maybe he's giving them a little nug, a little push, that they need to take action. Here's what he said.
And men from playing in women's sports. Big Supreme Court case, and I can't believe it. Some of the justices were fighting hard for men to be able to play in women's sports. A couple of them. I can't imagine it, but I think anybody that rules that way should lose a lot of credibility. But we banned men from playing in women's sports. All you have to do is look at the records, look at weightlifting records, look at swimming records, look at track and field. It's not fair. It's very demeaning to women.
Yes, it is. And I hope that the Supreme Court will solve this or answer this question once and for all. The president went even further. He said any justice who rules that way should lose a lot of credibility. Now, regardless of how you feel about the Trump administration and the president, those types of comments tap into something that a lot of Americans are thinking. We're saying quietly to one another. So how did we even get here? The cases before the Supreme Court come out of Idaho and West Virginia, two states that passed laws saying that women's and girls' sports are for biological females. Very simple. End of sentence. Not radical. It's not new. Shouldn't even be controversial. And it hasn't been until recently. Those laws were challenged by transgender athletes, blocked by lower courts. Now the U.S. Supreme Court is weighing whether states even have the right to draw that biological line. And during oral arguments, some justices raised questions that set off alarms for people watching, including the president. And by now, they kind of know that Donald Trump doesn't mind hinting at what he's thinking. Now, typically, a president doesn't comment on cases before the Supreme Court, especially the president who has appointed a majority of the conservatives on the court. Some people would say, well, you're trying to lobby the court. You're trying to pressure the court. I think that's exactly what Donald Trump's trying to do. He pointed reporters to something very simple, to some records that were set in swimming, in track. He talked about weightlifting and how, some young boys who pretend to be girls had broken all kind of weightlifting records, shattered records in women's weightlifting. Look at the times. Look at the distances. Look at the strength differences. It's not fair, he said. And it's very demeaning to women. That's what he was saying. Now, that's not a culture war slogan. It's just a simple observation by a president who uses common sense. Women's sports exist because men and women are different physically. How many times have we talked about this? It's the entire reason that Title IX mattered in the first place. It wasn't about excluding men from participating or women participating in sports is about protection and opportunity for the two sexes. Women just simply did not have the opportunities to compete in men's sports. That's why they were allowed to have their own sports. Trump reminded people that early in his return to office, he signed an executive order aimed at keeping biological males out of women's sports. His position has not changed, and thank goodness. So during the hearing, Ketanji Brown Jackson pressed Idaho's Solicitor General pretty aggressively, questioning whether the law amounted to discrimination against transgender students. I am so sick of hearing this type of argument. They forget about the real biological females. Now, her central point was, if transgender girls are treated differently than biological girls, isn't that discrimination? She returned to that framing repeatedly. Meanwhile, Sonia Sotomayor emphasized the estimated 2.8 million Americans who identify as transgender, asking whether their numbers were large enough to warrant constitutional protection. We're trying to create a whole new class here. She said the numbers don't talk about the human beings. And she's right. The numbers don't talk about the human beings who are born biological females either. So listen, people matter. Every person deserves dignity and safety. We need to be kind to one another. But the question before the court isn't whether transgender people are human beings and whether we should treat them with kindness. The question is whether biological reality still matters in law. Other justices framed the issue very differently. Chief Justice John Roberts questioned whether a sex-based rule automatically becomes a transgender classification. Justice Samuel Alito raised the concerns of female athletes who oppose competing against transgender women, asking whether they're supposed to be dismissed as bigots or delusional. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, speaking as a longtime girls basketball coach, pointed out something that rarely gets said in these debates. For the girl who doesn't make the team, who doesn't medal, who loses a scholarship, the harm is real. And it's permanent. It's something that she will never get back. It's an experience she'll never get again in her lifetime. You don't get the season back. You don't get that opportunity again. And it's just simply unfair to a young girl who has played sports her entire life to get to that high school level, to hopefully get on to the college level, and she loses that scholarship because some boy beat her out simply because he was feeling kind of delicate. He felt like that that God had made a mistake, and he really wasn't a boy, he was a girl. So when Trump says credibility is at stake, here's what he's really talking about. If the Supreme Court can't acknowledge obvious biological differences, if it can't say out loud what everyone knows to be true, if it treats fairness as optional and feelings as decisive, then the court stops being an anchor of stability and starts drifting with politics and the culture of the day. Americans notice that. They noticed it in earlier rulings. They noticed it when Title IX was reinterpreted, and they're noticing it now. It isn't about hating anyone. It's about whether we can still talk about reality, and it's reality, folks. God made boys. God made girls. It's not your fault that losing weight is getting harder and harder. You're eating better, you're moving more, but your body isn't responding the way it used to. That's not willpower, that's metabolism. And believe me, I've learned so much about the metabolism from the folks at PhD Weight Loss, and it's made a huge difference in my life. Joey Hudson here. For many people, years of dieting quietly slows the metabolic system down, so the harder you try, the less progress you see. At PhD Weight Loss, they help people identify what's actually blocking fat loss, and they fix the root cause, not just count calories. If you want to understand why your body isn't cooperating, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Fix My Weight Loss to unlock the New Year's special. It's free, it's personalized, and it could explain everything. Call 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss. That's 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss to get started today. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Start the new year off right and fix your weight loss. Just when you think that the chaos in Minneapolis can't get any worse, when those idiots marching around out on the streets out there protesting can't reach a new low? Listen to this. A number of restaurants, bars, and coffee shops in the Twin Cities say that they're planning to take part in a, quote, economic blackout this Friday as their way of protesting President Trump's immigration enforcement policies. This according to some social media posts that are online. According to what we're seeing in the stories, dozens of food establishments, along with some other small businesses, have planned to close operations, promoting what organizers describe in posters as a statewide shutdown with calls for no work, no school, no shopping. The demonstrations against U.S. immigration and ICE ICE is scheduled for 2 p.m. Friday in downtown Minneapolis. Now, let's think about this for a minute. They're calling it the ICE Out. It was announced a couple of days ago by the Minnesota Immigrants' Rights Action Committee. It's a group that describes itself on its website as an all-volunteer, grassroots, multiracial, multinational immigrants' rights mass movement organization. I bet not a single one of them has a legitimate job. They obviously don't own a small business, because what small business, what size, it doesn't matter what size the business, what business, period, can afford to close down, lose that revenue because you disagree with the president? How stupid can you get? You never get that revenue back. You lose that revenue, it's gone. Fox News says they reached out to ICE for comment. The agency previously said its enforcement actions are focused on individuals in the country illegally who pose public safety or national security concerns. That's what we're seeing. Boy, did you see the news conference yesterday where Greg Bovine just laid it out very clearly? I think that the people in Minnesota, or the officials in Minneapolis, thought that if they made enough noise that the Trump immigration enforcement folks were just going to say, "Oh, sorry, we'll leave now. Bye-bye. If you curse us enough, if you raise your voice at us, we'll just walk out." Well, it's not going to happen, as you know. And they doubled down yesterday in a news conference following the president's news conference, where they made it very clear. And they also cleared up some things here, too, because some of the reporters asked them for the response on some of the charges about how they were doing illegal searches and they were detaining people, American citizens. And they made it very, very clear. Maybe there have been some mistakes made and people were temporarily detained. But as soon as they verified that their citizenship and who they were released. Now, so back to the ICE Out. Southeast Asian and Latin street food restaurants, Hola Arepa and Hai wrote in a joint Instagram account that they will be closed in support of the general strike to remove ICE from our cities and get justice for Renee Good. Yeah, close down, stop making your noodles, and I'm sure ICE is going to leave. They're going to tuck tail and run because you closed your business. You lost that revenue. Another one, Wildflower Coffee, shared that its 2 locations will be closed to ensure our staff can participate in ways that feel meaningful to them and no further exist in solidarity with the movement. Again, how stupid. So that their employees can feel meaningful out there protesting ICE, immigration enforcement, taking bad guys off the street. If you called any of the president's news conference yesterday, he went through and detailed some of the bad guys who have been apprehended. And just as we know, there's some very bad people, murderers, rapists, people who have done things to small children that you can't imagine, and they're going to close their coffee shop to protest that type of enforcement. The coffee shop wrote that it was also seeking $2,500 to help offset lost wages and revenue. All right, who's going to step up and write that check? Again, you can't get more ignorant. You close your coffee shop to protest the president, but yet you put a sign on the door saying, oh, by the way, we're going to close. Will you chip in and help us raise $2,500 to offset the lost revenue? Hey, I have an idea. Stay open. Sell some coffee. Do what you're there to do. The Post said, your contribution helps ensure that we can take care of our staff and programming in the face of this challenging time. St. Paul Cafe announced on Instagram it will close in solidarity with Ice Out of Minnesota and encourage others to participate in the march. The same cafe is also handing out whistles, writing, come by and grab one this week if you don't already have one. The whistles are what they're using to blow at ICE agents. Again, like that's going to run them out of town. This planned demonstration is set to be in downtown Minneapolis, again, on Friday. And an Argentinian-Italian restaurant, Martina, posted on its Instagram page that it will be participating in the strike as well. They said, based on many meaningful conversations with team members, we have made the decision to close Martina on Friday, January 23rd. We will resume normal service on Saturday. Look, if I lived in this area and Martina was one of my favorite restaurants, I would have to let them know you've seen the last of me. I will not be returning to this idiocy. If you're this stupid that you're going to close your restaurant, don't expect me to come back and support you. Meta Coffee wrote on his Facebook page that in solidarity with fellow businesses, both our coffee shop and our bookstore is going to close Friday. We object to the invasion of our state and the political corruption. We call for ICE to stop the invasion and leave Minnesota. No work, no school, no shopping. Now, let's kind of dissect that for a minute. They say we object to the invasion of our state and the political corruption. Now, are they saying that they object to the political corruption of Tim Walz's administration and what we've seen with those daycare centers? Is that what they object to? I don't think so. I don't think that's what they meant. But they should object to it. That should be what they're so upset about, is that people, the Somalia community in their community, that the fraudsters in their community has absconded with their tax dollars because, hey, I suspect that Meta Coffee pays federal taxes, don't you? Bullhorn's Bar wrote on Instagram, we stand with our immigrant community and neighbors and will be closed for the Ice Out protest. Now, as restaurants continue to announce their participation in this Friday closure, some businesses have also posted signs stating that federal immigration agents are not permitted to enter their establishments. Federal agents, ICE, DEA, ATF, or other agent or agencies may not enter or park or stage immigration operations on this property, reads a sign posted on a gas station in Minneapolis. Rancho Loco Grill and Bar put a sign on its door that reads, ICE is not welcome to this business. A coffee shop posted a sign indicating that federal agents are not permitted on the premises and that staff is not authorized to allow ICE access to the business. These dummies should be giving free coffee. They should be giving food. They should be feeding these ICE agents for being out there on their protecting their community. This is all being fed, of course, by people from these professional agitators, as they're being called, all around the country. Again, it's just crazy. Georgia-based civil rights attorney Robert Patillo says that owners can legally refuse entrance to ICE agents unless they show a real judicial warrant signed by a judge, not just ICE paperwork. He said this is why many lawyers encourage language like, we do not consent to immigration enforcement in non-public areas without a judicial warrant. Portillo also said at the same time, staff have to be trained that if agents do show up with a valid warrant, this is not the moment for a heroic physical standoff. He said the law draws a bright line between saying we won't help you and actively blocking or hiding someone named in that warrant. Clergy members plan to announce hundreds of places of worship in Minnesota that will also take part in Friday's shutdown, denouncing the ICE surge. After what happened with these protesters in the church on Sunday, why would another church want to participate in this? Because the same thing could happen to their congregation as well. I don't get it. Help me out here. Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Your comments are welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Firmin Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Firmin Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Firmin Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Firmin, Matthew Firmin. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Firmin Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Firmin Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Firmin Ford online at firminford.com, firminford.com. On the text line, Faye writes, Joey, personally, I think we need to give Minnesota to Canada, and as a bonus, give them Don Lemon. He was the evil ones who broke into the church, and yet to hear him talk, he was the victim. How can you get that low? Stay safe. Thank you. Tony says, Joey, I heard you on Mike's show yesterday talking about the DOJ making arrests. It is never going to happen. Nothing she's done so far tells me there's going to be arrests made and men can't become women. Well, we agree on men can't become women, Tony. I do believe there's going to be some arrests, though. We'll see. Tony doesn't care too much for our Attorney General, Pam Bondi. Texter, Joey, yes, I think Greenland is a good idea for the USA. I do too. But it took me a little bit to kind of come around to that. I never was opposed to it. I was just thinking, well, why would we pay so much attention to it? Why pick that fight now? But I get it now. I understand it. Gavin Newsom showed up in Davos yesterday. And rather than playing statesman on the world stage, I mean, he's only there to get the coverage, to pretend that he's presidential. And rather than taking advantage of that world stage, Newsom brought his troll act to Davos, and it bombed. He opted to slam foreign leaders for being too polite to Donald Trump. And he used some of the crudest language possible, saying people are rolling over and he just can't take it anymore.
I can't take this complicity. People rolling over. I should have brought a bunch of knee pads for all the world leaders. I mean, handing out crowns and this is pathetic. Nobel Prizes that are being given away. I mean, it's just pathetic. And I hope people understand how pathetic they look on the world stage. I mean, at least from an American perspective, it's embarrassing. So this guy's playing folks for fools, and it's embarrassing.
Europeans think this is diplomacy, and this will ultimately
this is
work.
Diplomacy with Donald Trump? He's a T-Rex. You mate with him, or he devours you.
Well, you do have to give Newsom some credit on that last line. But hey, he knows from experience. Now, the governor has used the sexually suggestive and degrading knee pads line before, bashing Republicans who defer to the president. He used it because it works among partisan Democrats. He made a complete fool out of himself. I'm not sure he even realized that, though. As the saying goes, act like you've been there before. Well, the governor instead looked like he had no clue. Now, attacking our neighbors, our nation's president on foreign soil utterly trashes the traditional rule that politics ends at the water's edge. But Gavin Newsom's gaffes went well beyond that. He went to Davos determined to use this elitist venue to undermine Donald Trump and to promote his own presidential aspirations. Instead, he made himself a fool, or maybe a clown, in the world leaders' eyes. Plenty of presidents, prime ministers probably dislike Donald Trump. Some may even detest him. Others admire him. And they all have to deal with him because he's president right now, not Gavin Newsom. The governor of California has nothing to do with world issues, world policy. And guess what, Gavin? The American people elected Donald Trump. They can't afford the kind of cheap posturing that maybe scores in a big, deep blue state like California. We don't care about that. The Democrats who insist that Trump is an overseas disaster ought to be easily able to outdo him when it comes to diplomacy, right? Yet Gavin Newsom failed at his first test. He got an F. And that pathetic first impression is not going to be forgotten by world leaders around the country. The governor did California no favors either. He embarrassed his own state. He likes to boast that his state has the world's fourth largest economy, which should imply a degree of gravitas in a governor. Instead, Governor Newsom was kind of playing like a troll, as if his press office's social media strategy is the way to win overseas accolades. He missed an opportunity to represent not only his state of California, but the country, and to maybe show to his Democrat friends that he had some social graces. Newsom's only care is to be the most anti-Trump Democrat in the 2028 presidential primary. And if that, in fact, was his goal, which I suspect it is, I got to say, Gavin, you failed miserably. You know, I was talking a minute ago about the Minnesota, Minneapolis businesses who are going to have a blackout on Friday. Yesterday, was the 1-year anniversary of the Trump administration. Several media outlets proudly reported that thousands of people across the country flooded into the streets in a mass walkout protesting immigration and customs enforcement marking the 1-year anniversary of Donald Trump's return to the Oval Office. The walkout, it was dubbed the Free America Walkout. It was spearheaded by the Women's March movement. You remember that? It's the same group that mobilized the protesters against Trump's first administration in 2017. According to its website, organizers urged people to walk out of schools, walk out of their workplaces, their businesses, just kind of close up around 2 p.m., and walk out in the spirit of freeing America with the aim to withhold our labor, our participation, and our consent. You can see videos of scenes captured around the country. Atlanta, New York City, Minneapolis, of course. They're not going to miss out on that. They're already out on the streets anyway. Washington, D.C. In some areas, high school students walked out of school during snowy conditions, exercising their political voice despite being too young to vote. And I hope that when they got home, Mama and Daddy took care of it. Now, in other cities, you saw crowds of demonstrators filling the streets, public spaces. Again, like New York City, for example, demonstrators marched to the area outside of Trump Tower, chanting slogans, holding signs, calling for changes to federal policies. Organizers accused the Trump administration of being fascist. It's kind of getting old, isn't it? The president, one of the spokespersons, the group said on its website, 1 year into Trump's second regime, we face an escalating fascist threat. ICE raids on our communities, troops occupying our cities, families torn apart, attacks on our trans siblings, mass surveillance, and terror used to keep us silent. We're not going to be silent anymore. It's time for our communities to escalate as well. Good for them. It's not your fault that losing weight is getting harder and harder. You're eating better, you're moving more, but your body isn't responding the way it used to. That's not willpower, that's metabolism. And believe me, I've learned so much about the metabolism from the folks at PhD Weight Loss, and it's made a huge difference in my life. Joey Hudson here. For many people, years of dieting quietly slows the metabolic system down, so the harder you try, the less progress you see. At PhD Weight Loss, they help people identify what's actually blocking fat loss, and they fix the root cause, not just count calories. If you want to understand why your body isn't cooperating, call PhD Weight Loss now and mention Fix My Weight Loss to unlock the New Year's special. It's free, it's personalized, and it could explain everything. Call 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss. That's 864-644-1900 and say Fix My Weight Loss to get started today. You can also find them online at myphdweightloss.com. That's myphdweightloss.com. Start the new year off right and fix your weight loss.